Hello, and thank you for checking out the Littrell Show for service and hospitality entrepreneurs. I'm Jason, and here are the stories from March 3rd. If you haven't heard, the House passed a $25 billion restaurant relief package as part of the $1.9 trillion federal aid package in response to COVID-19. The second story is New York City is easing up on fines and petty violations in favor of education and correction. The third story is Deferred Rent or Deferred Reality. So the bills for deferred rent are coming due. All right, the first story is the House passes Biden's $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan, including $25 billion in restaurant relief. U.S. House of Representatives voted to pass President Biden's $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan largely on party lines. So they didn't really get any help from the Republicans. So this includes a $25 billion relief plan for small businesses, and the $15 minimum wage hike and this happened on Friday night heading into Saturday morning. The $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan also includes the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, which would provide $25 billion in relief for small and mid-sized restaurants, and based on the original $109 billion Restaurants Act passed by the House last year. The plan would provide up to $5 million in grants for individual restaurants, bars, caterers, breweries, and tasting rooms, or up to $10 million for restaurant groups. So to qualify, restaurants must not be part of an affiliated restaurant group with more than 20 locations. I'm guessing that includes franchises, or not really sure. So the first 3 weeks of the grant period which is right now, would prioritize restaurants owned and operated by women, people of color, and veterans. Additionally, 1/5 of the funding is set aside for businesses that grossed less than $500,000 in receipts in 2019. So that's like a lot. That's like the bulk of the the restaurant industry. So the next story is I think that this is awesome, including the $15 minimum wage hike. A lot of people are really stressed out about the minimum wage hike, but they're typically the larger operators and the people that employ non-tipped employees. The next story is New York City restaurants could get a reprieve from some city code violations under the new bill. So this is huge. In my opinion, saving money is just as important as making money. And so these two new bills that they're proposing in New York City would actually save them quite a bit of money. So the story reads, two new bills introduced to the city council are pushing for city agencies to eschew fines and penalties in favor of education and cure periods. The first of the two bills, which is intro number 2234, looks to suspend certain low-level penalties during the pandemic and return some fines that have already been paid since the COVID-19 related emergency declaration on March 12th, 2020, which is effectively when bars and restaurants got shut down in New York. So the story continues to read that the penalties certain to pertain to violations of city code and fines issued by a variety of agencies like the Health, Sanitation, Transportation, Consumer Affairs, and Department of Buildings, among others. So the other bill, which is intro number 2233, aims to make longer-term changes by amending how 183 different city codes that govern small businesses, including restaurants, are enforced. The goal of the bill is to foster dialogue between city agencies and businesses instead of financial punitive action, with fines left as a last resort. Now, hallelujah. If anybody has ever run a bar or restaurant in the city of New York, you understand that you have to basically be a compliance officer to run your restaurant. Bars and restaurants get caught up for months and sometimes years with paying their lease, unable to open because of compliance issues. So that's not going to change, but that nickel and dime shit that happens for your letter grade is hopefully going to be mitigated or eliminated in favor of actually teaching you what's wrong and giving you some time to cure that. Now, it doesn't always work like that, but hopefully this will be some meaningful change, and that will make it easier to run a bar and restaurant in New York, because as we know, we're going to talk about this in the next story, the failure rate is massive, and a lot of that has to do with compliance and just dumb stuff that we have to deal with as operators. All right, so the next story is a year later, deferred rent may be restaurants' downfall, and this comes from The Real Deal, which is a real estate speculation, which is a real estate website, and the story reads, 37% of restaurants have deferred their rent due to the coronavirus pandemic, according to a recent report by the New York City Hospitality Alliance. But that pales in comparison to the number of restaurateurs who could not pay part or all of their rent, which was 92% from a survey in December. So 92% of the bars and restaurants couldn't actually pay their full rent. So Dina Cohen is a partner at Herrick Feinstein, who specializes in commercial leasing, and she goes on to say that restaurants are not going to be able to pick up a big nut like that. She says, unless there's an additional negotiations or retailers receive a bailout. The restaurants are kicking the can down the road if they are deferring rent. And prior to the pandemic, 17% of independently owned full-service restaurants startups failed in their first year, with the median lifespan of a restaurant being just under 5 years, according to a 2014 analysis of 81,000 restaurants across the United States. And that figure is likely higher in New York. 17% failure rate in the first year. If we have a failure rate that high already, imagine owing a year of back rent. How are you ever going to possibly pay that back? So, chances are, this sucks. It sucks to say, it sucks to hear, but chances are if you're deferring your rent, you're probably never going to pay it back, and you're just kind of delaying the inevitable. So I look forward to your thoughts and comments on that. I know that's not a very popular thing to say. So for story ideas, comments, errors, and omissions, please send a message to Jason Littrell on any social media platform or email podcast@jlittrell.com. All articles are property of the original publisher, so please be sure to check out the show notes for links to the source articles. Those can be found at shownotes.jlittrell.com. Head to our group, Service and Hospitality Entrepreneurs, on Facebook to join the discussion, or search for Jason Littrell on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and even Clubhouse, or subscribe to The Littrell Show wherever you get your podcasts. I've been Jason Littrell, and we will see you next time.